was being built about 15 years ago, they uncovered a very, very large graveyard down below with about 800 burials in it. So 800 burials was very high for this area. So they think that people might have come here to die. And maybe these women here were like a hospice to look after the dying. And people wanted to come to a holy area and be very close to a holy site. And this is Brigid's holy site. Interesting, because Brigid's mother was a slave. Her father was a chieftain from Leinster. Leinster's a big place. So, her mother's name was Brigid. Her father's name was Duffolk. And Duffolk fell in love with his slave, who was good in every way and beautiful. And it says in one of the stories they got married, but in other stories it just says she became pregnant. So, she's pregnant. She is a slave and she's pregnant. She is the lowest level of society in ancient Ireland. Not only is she a slave, she's a pregnant slave. There's nothing much lower than that in social standing. His wife wants her gone. She doesn't want her around. So she says, I want you to get rid of this woman. But he doesn't want to, because he said, I love her. So anyway, one day he's in a chariot driving along, and his Brigid, the slave woman, is behind him. And they pass the house of a druid. And the druid runs out and says, who's in that chariot? Is there a king in it? And he stops it and he says, who's in that? And he said, it's my slave woman, Brigid. And he said, oh, and are you pregnant? And she said, yeah. And he says, by whom? By my master, Duffolk. And he says, well, the child you will have will surpass every other child that has been born in this country. And she will be wonderful. So Duffolk's really happy about this. So anyway, they go home, but his wife is very annoyed, and she's afraid when she hears the story that the child of the slave woman will become more important than her own children. So she says, you have to sell her. So then another druid comes to the house, and Brigid's father says, I'll sell the slave woman, but not the child in her womb. So her mother goes off with another druid. They go to another house. She's sold again to a druid from the north. The north. There's a clue. We are in the north, almost. So anyway, so remember, her mother is a slave. So she has no rights at all, none. So it's unusual in the first part that she was in the chariot with her master. That was unusual. So anyway, the story of her birth is another poet comes, the druid who owns her now decides to have a banquet in his house for the king and queen. So he invites the king and queen, and the queen is pregnant. And they say to the druid, when is a good time for the baby to be born? And the druid says, the baby who is born between daylight and darkness will be the most amazing person to have ever been born in this country. Something like that. So then the queen has her baby early because they know the baby's born dead. So they know it's not him. But Brigid's mother, is going out in the morning as the sun is coming up between daylight and darkness. She's going out to milk the cows. She is a milkmaid. That's her job. And she's walking out over the threshold of the house. And as she walks across the threshold, Brigid is born. Just like that. Just like that. And then Brigid is bathed in buttermilk because the other milkmaids are there carrying the milk. Yeah, and that was common that babies would be baptised in milk. That happened in Ireland up until the 12th century. Babies were baptised in milk because milk was the source of life and nurture and healing and food. But the church decided, no, we have to stop this tradition because it's too old and too pagan. So you can see from that story, she was born on a threshold. She is a bridge. What we said earlier when we were in Bridge Street. She's the bridge between the new religion. Her mother is a Christian. Her father is a old religion. Let's call him that. He's part of the old religion. Her mother is a slave. Her father is a chieftain. Her mother is poor. She has no rights in society. Her father is a wealthy chieftain. He's a high-level person. So she's the bridge in between all of these things. And she's the bridge in the world that is changing. Because everything is changing in Ireland at that time. Everything is changing.
Kleine Lebensweise. Hier kann man das noch finden. Das ist also ganz spannend. Und du hast gerade gesagt, dass es ein Jahr hat sie da noch was Neues entdeckt.
I don't know what that is that you found. I don't know. So anyway, so there was women here, a monastery here from early Christian times. And the story is that Brigid was born at Birthplace. But there are lots of lives of Brigid. So, as I said to you this morning, the monks wrote down the stories after Brigid died, Saint Brigid died. And there's lots of these stories written down, and they're called the Lives of Brigid, and they're written in Latin. And some of them are a mixture of Old Irish as well. And they're all over, they're in libraries all over Europe. Lots are in Germany. Because St. Brigid became really popular, and her stories were carried out by all the monks, and they wrote them down and they kept them. So all over Europe have the best surviving manuscripts of her life. So it's strange because in only one of the stories it says Brigid was born at Fahart Merhevna on a Wednesday, on the 8th of the month. So the other stories don't even mention where she was born. In fact, the main one that people use, Cogitosus, he doesn't even mention, I think he mentions Kildare once. So, I always wondered to myself, why was she born at Fahart? Our most important saint. Well, in my mind, our most important saint. So why was she born here? When she was, all her stories are about, well, not all her stories, but her life that we know of seemed to be in Kildare, and that's where she had her monastery. And we know she had a monastery there. So why was she up here? Why did that happen? That seems to make no sense at all. So, what I thought, and then what I heard this year from Dr. Mary Conti, is that this was a site of worship to the older Brigid. So people were coming here to worship the older Brigid before the saint. And it must have been a really important site, because the church decided to write down that Saint Brigid was born here. Not that she was born in Kildare or Dublin or anywhere else, but that she was born here in this place on the edge. This is St. Brigid's well, and this is the tree that has the offerings. You can see all of these, and because this graveyard is not owned by either church, no one wants to take it on because of insurance reasons mainly. All of these things are left, not like the lower place, the shrine, where the stuff is taken down. Everything is left, and probably a few hundred are for Brigid. But every probably little place like this might have had a holy well at one time. And the well is dedicated to the spirit of that place. So it could be goddess, usually goddess, and then later that becomes a saint. So this is Saint Brigid's well. there's lots of St. Brigid's wells. So she, as she went around the country, all the places she went to had wells.